Psychology. What is not seen is always fascinating. Discovering that virtual reality is being used to treat people with mental disorders is truly interesting. But in what way is VR helping the mental health community? There is a curious connection between psychology and the city of Florence. In 1817, the French writer Henri Stendhal fainted from too much beauty at the sight of the Niccolini Chapel in Santa Croce in Florence. Like Stendhal, many tourists suffered from the same ailment visiting Florence's works of art. Many years later, psychiatrist Graziella Magherini identified and analyzed these symptoms and associated them with a psychosomatic disorder. This symptomatology took the name of Stendhal syndrome. This means that in front of works of art of considerable beauty, people feel widespread malaise. Could virtual reality maybe help those suffering from this disorder? Welcome everybody to the third AWE Nite Florence event. My name is CECILIA LASCIALFARI, co-founder of Area6.com, creative technologist, aspiring journalist. I'm very excited to be here to present you with a discussion about the evolution of psychology through new technology, such as augmented and virtual reality. Today, we welcome three accomplished professionals, Giuseppe Riva, Simone Barbato, and Luca Bernardelli, who will share their studies and application in the field of psychology associated with VR. Can virtual reality help us evaluate and treat eating disorders and even help us improve the ability to regulate emotions? How can psychologists use these new technologies? What does the future hold for psychological research using AR/VR? This question and more are what our speakers will share with us today. And now, I'm happy to introduce my co-organizer of AWE Nite Florence and good friend, Anthony Vitillo. Hi, Anthony. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Cecilia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to AWE Nite Florence. I'm Anthony Vitillo. Some of you may know me as the Scared Ghost. I work in AR and VR since like 7 years now, and as a developer, technologist, enthusiast, and blogger. So I'm very happy to be here with you. And before leaving to the amazing speakers that we have today, I invite you all to use a lot the chat and the Zoom chat, because what we like of AWE Nite Florence is having a great debate as a world community, speak together and have fun together, and also use it to ask the questions to the very important speakers that we have today. So Cecilia, I leave you the word again.
And now let me introduce you, Mr. Giuseppe Riva. Giuseppe Riva, PhD, is full professor of communication psychology and new media psychology at the Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore in Milan, Italy, where he is the director of the Humane Technology Lab that is exploring and promoting the humane side of technology. Riva is also director of the Applied Technology for Neuropsychology Lab at the Istituto Auxiologico Italiano in Milan, that promotes the use of advanced technologies from virtual reality to AI and robotics for improving healthcare assessment and treatment. Giuseppe Riva presents virtual reality for treatment of eating disorders. Welcome, Giuseppe. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, Anthony, for the invitation. I will try to share my screen. Just a few words about why I'm trying to use virtual reality. In Nature, that probably many of you know very well, one of the leading science journal in the world, a few years ago, appeared a call for new ways of dealing with mental health. Mental health is a big issue. We know very well that mental health is an important problem that even the coronavirus epidemic has increased. And if we look at the tools actually used by mental health practitioners, most of them are not so different from what have been used by Sigmund Freud many years ago. So the challenge for everyone working in psychology is finding new tools. And my answer to this call is the possibility of using virtual reality. Well, I've been working in virtual reality since 1994, so more than 25 years, and I've published more than 330 papers about the topic. So you can find my work on my website, giusepperiva.com. But what I want to share with you is the outcome of my research work. We know, and my colleague also will tell you, that virtual reality is effective in dealing with many mental health disorders. I published many meta-review that analyzed the situation of the research in this field, and we know very well that virtual reality is effective in anxiety disorder and pain management, and also in eating and weight disorder, topic that I will discuss with you in a few seconds. And why virtual reality is so effective? Probably this was an open question since a few years ago, when there was a big shift in cognitive science. In cognitive science, there is now an emerging paradigm that is called predictive coding, that suggests that our brain maintains an internal model, a simulation of the body and the space around it. So it's like having a virtual reality in our brain. And these predictions are used to verify if our action and even our emotions are correct and can be related to what is happening around us. And virtual reality in this view is quite similar. And this is why, in my view, virtual reality is so effective, because like our brain, virtual reality maintains a model of the body and the space around it. And what is more interesting for us is the more the virtual reality model is similar to the model created by the brain, the more is the feeling that you are inside the virtual reality. So the feeling of presence probably can be connected to the ability of the technology of mimicking the working of the brain. So I think that this specific feature of virtual reality is what makes virtual reality so attractive for the world of mental health. Well, my first topic, and in which I work for the first time when I was a PhD student many years ago, is eating and weight disorder. I will focus today on eating disorder. I suppose that many of you are aware about eating disorder. Eating disorder are very severe, complex situation that it's related to the experience of the body and the way people eat. We know that anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and binge eating are quite, unfortunately, quite common in adolescents, especially girls, and they are the most common cause of death in adolescents. So dealing with them is very important, but finding a good solution for treating them is not so easy. Up to now, the most used approach is called cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy tries to address the wrong perception about the food and the body. But what I have discovered when I worked with these patients is that is not the critical part is not focusing only on the real body, but also on the prediction of the body made by our brain. We know that in anorexia, for instance, the predicted body, so the experience of the body is totally wrong. In this sense, the experience of the body is mediated by the brain, and the real-time data perception coming from our physical body is somewhat overridden by the information coming from our brain. And what I've done during the last year is trying to complement the typical cognitive behavioral therapy with different techniques based on virtual reality. That I will try to explain briefly to you. The first one is called Q exposure. The idea is that these patients have big problems in emotional regulation, so they are not able to control negative emotion related to food. And cognitive science knows very well that the best way to cope with the negative emotion is experiencing them. So what we have done using virtual reality is quite easy. We exposed a sample of patients to virtual reality food in order to make them able to control the negative emotion and reduce them in intensity. This is the clinical trial, because all the work we have done is supported by clinical trials. On my website, you can find all the papers. What we have done is quite simple. We created 4 different scenarios, so typical location where we can eat, so our kitchen, a restaurant, a pub, and so on. And inside this specific location, we used virtual food to expose the patient to them. And for each food, you can express your level of anxiety and control it. What we discovered that this approach was very, very effective, and even for complex patients, so what we call second-level therapy. So second-level therapy is the therapy that you use when the first one has failed. And we discovered that even in complex patients that failed before using CBT, we were able, using virtual reality, to increase the outcome of the approach. And for instance, in reducing binge eating, that is another critical problem for inside eating disorder. A second technique that we used to modify the experience of the body is another technique we called reference frame shifting. The idea is that in anorexia, in eating disorder, you are focused on your body from outside. So you always think at your body like your body is in front of a mirror. And what we try to do is creating a virtual reality experience in first person, in which you have to cope with a difficult situation. And then you enter in the virtual reality again, but outside, and you have to help your avatar, your own avatar, in coping with this difficult situation. So you see from outside your own avatar, and you have to support the avatar in dealing with critical situation that, for instance, in eating disorder is teasing. Being teased about your body is one of the expected causes behind eating disorder. So the idea is that in using virtual reality, you are able to help yourself in dealing with the teaser, the guy telling you that you are so obese, so fat, and so on. This approach also was very effective. We have again made a different randomized controlled trial, and we discovered that this approach was very effective in the long term, even after 1 year from the treatment. So again, virtual reality was able to make something that was not possible to have in real life. The final approach that is used is body swapping. In body swapping, what we do is to put yourself in a different body. And this is done using the same trick that is used for instance, the rubber hand illusion. In the rubber hand illusion, you have your own hand that is hidden by the view, and you see a rubber hand, and the guy touches your real hand together with the rubber hand, and you have the illusion that the rubber hand becomes your own hand. And the same approach can be used for full body illusion. I have a short video detailing the approach.
The person is invited to wear a hand-mounted display connected to a computer in order to embody into a virtual body. On the virtual body, responses disappear as soon as the razor reader and motion tracking device touch them in order to calibrate the virtual body according to the real one. Touching the actual belly of participants is mimicked in the R either synchronously or asynchronously. The former allows participants for a deeper sense of immersion and involvement so that they can experience the virtual body as if it was a real body.
Well, again, also this approach was very powerful. We tried this approach with different case studies, and we discovered that entering in a different body was very powerful for correcting body distortion. That is a typical problem in eating disorder. For instance, we completed recently this first study that in which we tested 23 anorectic patients using just one session of body swapping. And we discovered that this approach was able to correct and to reduce significantly body distortions. In conclusion, we have seen that we can use body swapping also in the long term. Another study that we completed recently is this one, in which we used 3 sessions of body swapping along a 1-year treatment of cognitive behavioral therapy. And again, we discovered that virtual reality was effective in reducing the overestimation of the hips, that is a typical problem in eating disorder. Well, I am to the end. I think that virtual reality is effective for eating disorder. There are many studies supporting it. Time was short, but if you are interested in exploring any more these approaches, you can read this material and also check my website, giusepperiva.com, where you can find many papers detailing how virtual reality can be used to improve mental health. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Giuseppe. And now we also welcome Mr. Simone Barbato. Simone Barbato is a clinical and digital psychologist, research collaborator at Cassino University, where he teaches mental training in a second-level university master degree, cyber-psychology expert for Amazon Prime Video in Celebrity Hunted, co-founder of IDEGO SRL. Simone Barbato presents virtual reality and mental health, the Italian case of the startup company IDEGO. Welcome, Simone. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Cecilia, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anthony, for the invitation. So I am Simone Barbato. I am a clinical psychologist, and I am the co-founder of IDEGO. IDEGO is a company that I co-founded in 2016, and our mission is to find innovative ways to promote mental health. So we develop VR software for psychotherapy and rehabilitation, and we work with private and public institutes. And we also work in the field of artificial intelligence applied to psychology, as we obtain 4 million funding together with University of Trento, and we are developing a conversational agent for promoting mental health. If you want to know more about this project, coadapt.it is the website, and you can look for something right there. So today I'm going to talk about the efficacy of VR in the treatment of phobias. I am going to talk about the additional values of VR for psychologists, and I'm also going to talk about the barriers that you encountered if you want to enter the virtual psychology market, and then I'm going to tell you what we have done as IDEGO. So first, I don't know how many psychologists are listening right now, but before talking about why VR is so effective in the treatment of phobias, I would like to tell you how the traditional way of treating phobias actually works. So when people are afraid of something, they tend to avoid the things they are afraid of. And but over the long term, this avoidance can make fear worse. So psychotherapists may recommend an exposure therapy. And the exposure therapy can be either imaginal, So the patient has to imagine the things he fears in order to learn how to gradually manage anxiety, or in vivo exposure. So you have to expose the patient to the real things he deemed threatening. Both have some limits, because the imaginal exposure for some people may be difficult, because not everybody is able to imagine in a vivid way. And also in vivo exposure therapy can be risky, for example, because you can expose the patient to the risk of re-traumatization. So thanks to VR, you can expose patients to the virtual things they fear in a more controlled and safe and cost-effective way. So let's see the efficacy and the advantages of VR exposure. So first, bringing the VR, sorry, not the VR, I mean, bringing the phobic situation inside of the psychology studio, you have an exposure therapy that takes place in a safe environment. It's less time consuming, is more cost effective, and also you have an increased control on the situational elements. For example, on a virtual plane, I can take off and land how many times I want. And if my patient is not ready for turbulence, for example, I can guarantee as a therapist there won't be any turbulence. And also patients are more motivated to go to therapy. Consider that 27% of patients abandon therapy when they find out that they have to be exposed to the real things they are afraid of, and only 3% of them abandon VR exposure. And at the end, VR is so effective also because people respond physiologically to VR experiences as they would do in front of the real situations. So, despite all these advantages, there is still no large-scale development for commercial purposes in our field of this technology. And that's why we decided to found IDEGO in 2016, because we wanted to first take VR outside of the research labs, make it more accessible and affordable for psychologists. And we wanted to democratize VR for mental health professionals, helping them to be more effective and to engage more young patients. So what I want to do right now is to let you see the additional values for a psychologist in Italy that wants to use VR. So consider that in Italy, we have 110, maybe more, mental health professionals. So it's a hyper large and competitive market of professionals that needs new way to interact with their patient, to promote themselves, and to engage new patients. Then we still have stigma attached to people who suffer from mental illness, and the stereotype of the psychology shrink useful just for crazy people is still here in Italy. So thanks to VR, psychology can increase their market, so especially engaging more young patients, can differentiate their offer so it stands out, and also psychologists can fight stigma and stereotypes, because VR can I don't know how to say that actually, but can help people see psychotherapy as something more, I would say, approachable and attractive and motivating and fascinating. So you're also presenting psychotherapy as a new way of empowering the individual and not just a way to treat, for example, a disease. So when we started in 2016, the barriers to entry were culture, because in Italy, a lot of mental health professionals didn't know what VR was or what VR therapy was. The absence of a turnkey package, so the absence of an all-in-one, ready-to-go solution for psychologists. Functionality, because we think that one of the big barriers to wide adoption of this technology for psychologists is the lack of a good user experience design. So to bring more psychologists close to this technology must be hyper easy to use. And then cost of tech, even is now is completely different, because we have more affordable devices. But when we started, devices were bulky, expensive, they had to be connected to devices and so on. Okay, last part of my speech, I want to talk about what we have done. So first, talking about culture as a barrier, we tried to speak about virtual therapy in front of an audience as wide as possible. And so we used the talent show platform, both national and international, to speak about VR therapy and its potential in front of an audience of more than 20 million people in 2 years. And so we received thousands of messages about the importance of mental health, the importance of fighting stigma, but also people told us that presented this way, VR help them see psychotherapy as something more motivating and approachable. And also, we knew that to fight stigma, we first need to encourage young people to access mental health support. And second, we wanted to help young people see psychotherapy as something cool and nothing to be ashamed of. That's why we try to gamify our approach to the virtual therapy. I show you a short video to explain what I'm trying to say. Okay, I took 1 minute to breathe again because I was pretty scared of finishing time. So, okay, so we did our best to spread this message through the media and public events and private events. And I think that dissemination is one of the biggest contribution that our society gave to the virtual psychology market. So let's come to our turnkey package. So as I was saying before, there was no turnkey package for the psychologists on the market. So we decided to put together training session, VR software, and the manuals that illustrates our protocol intervention. So we started by developing VR solution for the treatment of fear of heights, fear of flying, claustrophobia, fear of driving, fear of spiders, OCD, and also for cognitive rehabilitation. So here's a render of our app for the treatment of the fear of flying. And this one is of Cerebrum, our app for the cognitive rehabilitation. For example, in this scenario, the patient has to memorize a list of objects, a shopping list, and then he has to check which objects are missing in the cupboard, for example. Okay, some images from our applications. This is the welcoming scenario when people log into our apps. We try to make the user experience as simple as possible, so few interactions and also pleasant and welcoming and relaxing. And this is our offer. So 2 days of training, all our VR software with annual license, all the updates. We release 2 big updates during the year. The manuals that explains our intervention model, and assistance both on software and hardware. The cost is 990 euros, And from after the first year, if the psychologist wants to renew the license, he has to pay 29 euros a month. Here's a couple of intervention model sheets. Our intervention model is both on the assessment part and on the intervention phase. Now we are actually delivering online classes, and we also install our apps remotely. So we set up a call between the developer and the psychologist, but we are also uploading the app on the App Lab by Oculus. So it's just a matter of time, and soon, I hope, psychologists will be able to install the software by their own. Some comments about our masterclass. I have to say, I'm very proud to say that we have high marks, and mostly 5 out of 5. And we keep on working on our app day by day, and we also created a community on Facebook to keep this continuous exchange of opinions with the psychologists that are using our apps, trying to improve them. And I would like to finish my speech by sharing some numbers, because I think it's important to share ideas, but also to give a realistic idea of what we are doing in a practical way. So we started with this new turnkey package, the masterclass, in November 2019. And in 1 year, we had 80 psychologists joining the masterclass. Right now, we train more than 100 psychologists, and we are planning to reach 140 psychologists more in the year 2021. One other thing I would like to say is that in the last 2 years, IDEGO built 200,000 euros, something more, in the virtual psychology market, both including masterclass and the VR software we develop for clients. I know I'm not talking about millions, but anyway, in a new market that we are trying to create in Italy, I think it's a beginning. So we are pretty happy about what we are trying to do. And we are also happy to be here and to have the chance to share our journey with you, and to be on this path of innovation of our profession. So I want to thank you for your attention, and if any of you have questions, I'm here for you.
Cool. So thank you a lot, Simone, for your interesting talk and for what you're doing in innovating psychology.
I made it on time.
Yes, you are perfect. So great job, Simone. I think that people already writing something to you in the chat. I invite everyone to write questions in the chat for our speakers that are, very esteemed professional in the psychological field. So now it's my turn to introduce the last speaker, but just for the order, because he is an amazing professional as well. I'm very happy to introduce LUCA Bernardelli, who is a psychologist focused on the study of psychotechnologies and technopathologies. He is the co-founder and CEO of Become, Augmented Life, a small enterprise specialized in virtual and augmented reality solution for psychotherapy, empowerment, relaxation, and active learning. He is the co-author of the psychological method Augmented Psychology, the co-founder of Bowman Data Matter, a software company owner of Expanda, and Algorilla, big database platform. Recently, he was the opening speaker of the first European conference on digital psychology, and is a member of the Faculty of Psychology steering committee of the Catholic University of Sacred Heart of Milan. So LUCA Bernardelli presents Augmented Psychology, a new paradigm for mental health professionals. LUCA, all the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much for this presentation and the invitation, Anthony and Cecilia, and good afternoon to all the people that are following from all over the world. I saw with pleasure. So, well, Psychology and technology have never been as close as they are now. In general, the new attention on mental health imposed by pandemic is really evident at the moment, from professionals to media, from investors to politicians. So it's a relationship, the one between psychology and technologies that is changing a lot. We all know that there are disciplines like digital psychology or cyber psychology that are growing in terms of interest, in terms of studies, from the dark side, of course, because we all know that these disciplines are studying the impact that digital technology have on our brain and on our life. And so in this specific case, we all know that there is a dark side, but also big opportunities related to psychotechnologies that are can be very important in the next future of psychological practice. Because as Giuseppe Riva and Simone Barbato was telling us, there are a lot of potentialities on this area. But there is also something that we have to know and to be aware, that mental health professionals have to be sensible on this area, have to adopt and have to position more themselves in this area, and maybe and probably and hopefully to position themselves in the development of psychotechnologies rather than in the adoption in the daily practice. So this is, in my opinion, a strong challenge, one of the main challenges of the next future for mental health in general, and not just for a mental health professional. This relation, as I told, between psychology and technology is changing a lot. Here you can see just a partial landscape of some of the mental health startup of 2020, just to give you an idea. Of course, some of them are born in 2020, some of them have more years, but from US to Europe. But just to give you an idea of how pandemic put a great interest and attention on this area. Horizon Europe has some calls dedicated to mental health and with a very important budget dedicated to these calls. And there were a lot of exit from US and from Europe last year of mental health startup acquired, for example, from big companies. There are big tech, so from Google to Apple, that are entering this market. So this is really important and will become very important in the next future, that all the ecosystem of mental health will be aware of what is changing and what is happening now. It's happening now. In this ecosystem, we are positioning also in this ecosystem. Become is a multidisciplinary hub composed by psychologists, psychotherapists, medical doctors, designers, developers, and visual and sound artists. This is a part that we really like, because I cannot tell you how is nice to see people with so different competencies, so different languages, so different heart at the same table, working at the same table. So it's very interesting. We are mainly focused on the innovation of psychological practice, with a specific interest and with a specific attention on virtual reality, because as you perfectly understood, virtual reality is a huge potential in all the direction for psychological well-being and in general for positive change. And we have some interesting area that we are covering. We have some behind each of one of these area. We can propose tools and protocols from augmented psychology that is our pillar aimed for psychology and psychotherapists, to augmented well-being that is for end users, and then we will see some samples, to augmented therapy that in the next future will be destined to medical doctors, to another kind of market. And and we have also athletes and sports area that are represented by the augmented performance area, and all the change management, stress management topics related to augmented corporate. But and all of them are a VR-based value proposition. So we strongly believe that in this technology that we build all our portfolio and all our value proposition on this arena. So what is the augmented psychology paradigm? Is the paradigm wants to put an augmentation, an integration on what the psychology and the psychotherapists already did in their practice. So Simone and Giuseppe told us about some cases, but they perfectly know that virtual reality now can be applied in a huge number of mental health cases, from phobias to eating disorders, from OCD to PTSD, to a lot of things, a lot of mental health cases. And it's very interesting because it's experiential, it's multisensory, it's something that is can be a real impact on the engagement of the person, of the end person. In this specific case, psychologist practice can have two kinds, just to give you some samples, two kind of form. So digital methods at one side, and on our side, for example, augmented psychology is a digital methods that can be integrated in each kind of approach, psychotherapist approach, or psychological support, or digitized evidence-based techniques that are more related to techniques that are already existing in a real world that can be digitized. But we cannot talk only about an augmented psychology paradigm, but we have to talk about augmented mental health paradigm that will involve also doctor's practice with different forms that are digital supports, for example, like software as a medical devices. That is an incredible arena that is changing, that is growing, and that should dedicate a lot of hours on this. But also digital therapeutics that are another arena where, in few words, for example, just to give an example, a CBT treatment on a randomized and controlled trial, so validated clinically, of course, can become something that can be prescribable only for a medics, like a drug, like a medicine. So it's and this is a new era, a new frontier of mental health, in that specific case dedicated to doctors, to medical doctors. So this is very interesting, just to give you an idea, an example of what is changing, what is happening. And another part of this ecosystem, of the stakeholder of this ecosystem, of course, are end users practice. So all the people that now can use well-being app, for example, but with the help of self-help protocols that can be created by psychologists, psychotherapists, and can create some app that can have some clinical validation, for example, or validation. And this is an arena and a market that is really changing. So it's really important that mental health professional, but people in general, knows what's happening. Why? Because we are talking about health, we are talking about mental health, we are talking about therapy compliance, we are talking about something that is a topic very important at the moment, that is the dropout of the patient, because we know all the health professional, not just mental health professional, knows the problem related to the dropout. So people that abandoned a therapy that is medical, pharmaceutical, psychological, but this is a real problem because they are not engaged, because a lot of times they are not able to follow these kind of therapies. So we can use psychotechnologies and virtual reality as soon as it will become more and more accessible in terms of technologies and prices, like it started in these last years, to help them to are more compliant to therapies on one side, and on the other side to have more, to get more well-being and in general empowerment. Just to give you an example of the third pillar, so augmented well-being, I want to give you the COVID Feel Good project that has been guided by Giuseppe Riva, that you see here from, in the specific case, under Istituto Auxologico Italiano. We are talking about a weekly protocol based on a become virtual reality experience called The Secret Garden, and to manage the psychological stress produced by COVID-19. Consider that this experience has been translated in 50 languages and it was made in the first lockdown, where for 3 months we were forced to stay at home. Not so it was not so easy, as we all know. This protocol and experience has been made, is a virtual reality one, by 30 clinician, researchers, artists, developers. It's completely free, so for everyone. It works on every smartphone, for YouTube, and it supports every VR headset. It has been started a randomized controlled trial on 400 people, and a few months ago, decentralized one, and the project received an extensive international press coverage with articles from Washington Post, Forbes, Corriere della Sera here in Italy, and also a scientific article in Frontiers in Psychiatry. So this is something just to give you a small sample. I give you also at the end of my presentation, so I can leave you more time for the questions. At the end of my presentation, I'd like to leave you with a part of this experience that is a relaxation experience with an interesting protocol on it, and just after that, you will see some of our immersive experience that we create and that we use with our patients, users, customers, because these immersive experiences are aimed to psychologists and psychotherapists that are certified on our method, that can in a private, in a public, in private offices or in public hospital, just to give you an example, they can use them with their patient in order to amplify their exploratory thinking, for example, their imagination, emotion, cognitive and metacognitive parts. So it's interesting to see more than 1,000 people tried this kind of method. Is interesting to see what happened during it. There is a protocol also here, but I leave you with the last 1 minute trailer of some of our experiences.
And it brings you in front of a bamboo door, drawn between the rocks, which opens up slowly in front of you. And the sky, dark and stormy. And without losing sight of this fluttering leaf,
this is our last creation.
It is
very last.
Towards a circular-shaped rose garden, allowing your relaxation to expand more and more until it becomes part of you. And you can observe the sun setting slowly on the horizon.
And this is where I like to be in 30 minutes about. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm here with the other colleagues for the questions.
Okay, so thanks, Luca. Amazing presentation. Looking at the last video, I wanted to go there to Tropical Beach as well. So maybe give me the video after this event, so at least I can go there in VR. I invite everyone, of course, to continue asking the questions in the chat. I see that already lots of people asked them, and it's very good to see that there is all this interest towards psychology and AR and VR. And now it's time to do a little session of questions and answers. And I would like to all of you, and I would like to start with one that is not so technical, deep in the psychology themes you talked about today, but just more about the VR environment in general, because talking about VR and how it can become widespread and everyone can have maybe one day a VR headset in their household. The problem that some people say is that VR is isolating. VR can be a technology that can make people escape from reality, and then they can live in an alternate world and not care about the real world anymore. So they have this kind of dystopian, Black Mirror-like vision that scares some kind of people. Since you work in VR, you are also a psychologist, I would like to answer you, is there really this kind of risk? If not, is true that people should be scared about VR? Yes or no, and why? So I don't know who of you wants to answer this question. Giuseppe.
Well, I will try to answer first. It's clear that any synthetic world from television to social media has pros and cons. So it's clear that it's not so different from chocolate. We can eat a lot of chocolate and have well, a big pleasure from it, but also we can become very fat after some time. So the real problem is that it's how you can use virtual reality. I think that the movie Ready Player Go can provide the negative side of the process, that virtual reality can be more interesting, attractive, and positive for many users than the real life. But this is not so different from what we have now with multiplayer games. We know very well that in some countries there are young adolescents who retire from their own social life for staying at home. Hikikomori in Japan is a big issue. So I think that closing VR, because we fear that VR can be better than our real life, is maybe a risk, but also an opportunity that we have to follow. And in this case, I think that having clear rules about how to use virtual reality and in which way using virtual reality, because for instance, for social media, we know very well that a big problem was the young age of users, having people on social media when they are 11 or 12, and they don't have any rules or guidelines for dealing with the pressure of comparison that you have when you are in social media, is a problem. So probably virtual reality may be, we have the possibility of using it, but in the long term, we will also have the virtual reality driving license. So someone will tell us how to use it in an effective way, and this probably will reduce the risk of negative use inside virtual reality.
Cool. So Giuseppe, since we are speaking, I remember that some times ago we had a chat about the use of VR and VR in psychology and in hospitals. And you told me that at that time, it was like 3 years ago maybe, there was not a headset that had all the qualities to be used in healthcare sector, like in the hospitals, because of hygiene problems, of the materials, the comfort, blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, in 2021, is this problem solved? And if no, what do you still need to make it usable in this kind of setting? You are in mute.
Yeah. Well, in the last 3 years, we have a big change in the availability of low-cost, high-quality devices. I think that the Oculus Quest 2 is a really very good device. However, for the use in clinical settings, we need a medical device, and the medical device is not the commercial headset we have now. What we need now for entering and breaking the walls inside the clinical field is an headset that is certified as a medical device. We don't have yet such a device. I think that with a medical device headset, many of the barriers will be overcome. It's just a problem of market and size. Up to now, for Facebook, is much easier targeting the gaming and leisure market than the healthcare one, because the healthcare one, like Luca and Simone knows very well, is still just a small fraction of the whole market of VR. However, I'm sure that VR will be more and more interesting for healthcare. In mental health care, it's already now a big opportunity. And it's probably a matter of time. We are moving forward, not reaching the end, but moving forward.
That's important. So, Simone, instead, a question for you, since you're trying to reach various psychologists to try to make these master classes. I wanted to know, since you're promoting this new technology, if you also try finding some resistance, I don't know, from people that think about the old paradigms and think that, this is a new technology, it's not useful, we can use the old way. So what are the problems that you find in trying to promote this technology?
Of course, a lot of psychologists are also afraid that technology will in some way replace them. So we also have to always say that VR is a tool, and it's an add-on tool that they can use or not. It depends on the cases. And not VR or other devices are going to replace them. So this is one of the biggest resistance. As I was saying during the speech, when you enter a new market, culture is always a barrier. So for example, the knowledge, the advanced knowledge of this technology, few mental health professionals has an advanced knowledge of this technology. So at the beginning, we were going around talking about VR technologies, and they were looking at us like this. And it is kind of weird, because we have like professionals, as for example, Giuseppe Riva, that is going on with research since so many years. But outside of the research labs, professionals doesn't know about these technologies and their effectiveness. So the resistance are cultural, and this big fear of being replaced. I think this is the most big fear that we encountered actually.
And what kind of sectors of psychology do you think that there has not been enough exploration with VR yet? So, about anxiety and phobias, we have many examples. I don't know if you have some sector that you think that just should be some experimentation.
Okay, I don't know. Actually, I think that VR has been applied to a lot of psychological fields. And I think one of the most interesting is the cognitive remediation, for example, and also the cognitive training. So, for example, the empowering of cognitive skills as memory, attention, learning. I think another field would be very interesting, even though a lot of companies are actually going this way, is social skills training. So help people to empower the social skills abilities, like public speaking, but also, for example, the ability to negotiate with people. I think that would be very interesting, and not just treating social anxiety. That is another way of looking at this kind of application. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, this probably.
And Luca, to you, I ask, like you showed us this great BCAM application, the relaxation and provide psychological therapy. I want to ask you a bad question. So, but to what people you wouldn't advise to use psychology in VR? So what kind of collateral effects it may have? So in what cases would you advise not to use VR? If there are any, of course.
Of course, there are, but normally they are reported in the disclaimer of the software, the hardware vendor. So normally you will find some advice about people that are suffering of psychosis, for example, people that had an attempt on suicide in the past, some of the people with important mental health. This is the reason why, and I turned the question in this direction, Anthony. This is the reason why it's important that virtual reality as could be positioned through mental health professional more and more, because there are first of all, they have to be scenarios of virtual reality. They have to be conceived in a way that it will not create some problems, because we all know cyber sickness, nausea, all other kind of problems that we can have in a virtual reality scenario. But at the end, it's important that mental health professional can guide this kind of application, because these are, at the end, this can be psychotechnologies. We are talking about psychotechnologies. We are talking about mental health technologies, not just technologies. We are not in the market of technological innovation. We are in the market of therapeutic innovation. It's very, very different. This is the reason why we continue to push and to go in this direction, also on our colleagues, that has to be aware that if they will not position in this arena as soon as possible, someone else will position in this arena. Someone else that probably is not, can be also not a mental health professional, for example. And so this is very risky in general for people. This is the real challenge, in my opinion, because technology is not a psychotechnology and vice versa. So psychotechnology have to be people well trained in the middle that are able to guide, to use the right protocols, to use the right scenarios, to build and to develop the right immersive experiences. Because, for example, just to give you an idea, on 1,000 people that tried this, our immersive experience, just 2 people after take out the headset, because they wouldn't are able to have an accommodation, the right accommodation. But 2 people on 1,000. If you see cyber sickness is something that is has a strongest impact, for example, in terms of percentage in using virtual reality. So what I mean in this case, this big difference in terms of use is that we are psychologists, psychotherapists, we are the medical doctors, we are people that know some aspects and some methodologies of building a psychotechnology. This is the key, in my opinion.
Cool. And just to close this session, make us dream a bit. So in 5-10 years, so how do you imagine the vision? What is of psychology in XR?
But it's an interesting question, of course, and I will be, in today's I can be wrong. So because everything is changing so rapidly that today I think something that tomorrow can change. But in my opinion, this is it's very important. Some aspects are very important. First of all, digital education. So it's important that from school to the institution will be more sensible in this direction, digital education in general, and that are on the dark side and on the positive effects that can have that technology can have on people in general. Second thing is that if for our colleagues, if mental health professional will take this challenge and will be able to train themselves, and university like did, for example, Giuseppe Riva, but a lot of university, a lot of psychotherapy schools will integrate technology in their training path. Our category can have a brilliant future in terms of adoption and development of new psychotechnologies, because the psychologists and psychotherapists professional can have an important and a relevant role here, and they can have a lot of satisfaction doing this new job, because this is one of the potential next job. So the psychotechnologists, so the one that contribute to develop technologies for well-being and positive change. But of course it will pass through education first, training second, and a lot of application, a lot of adoption in the daily practice.
Cool. So I want to personally thank you, Free, for these amazing talks and answers. So I leave you the word to Cecilia for the final words of this event, but let me just thank you, all the speakers and all the people that attended this event also from the chat. Cecilia, to you the last greeting.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Luca. Thank you all for being here. See you soon at the next AWE Nite Florence event. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.